Welcome. My name is Ladi Jia, and I'm a career coach who specializes in working with mid to senior level career professionals as they search for their path forward in terms of career growth as well as in job search. And this is my Career Drive Live. It's a live broadcast I do weekly at 12 noon on Thursdays, sharing with you resources, insights, and sometimes interviews with people who have gone ahead and succeeded at um, either growing their careers or making career changes, etc. Okay, so welcome. If you are watching the replay, please like the page wherever you're watching it from. If you're on LinkedIn, follow me. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe. We need the subscribers. If you're on Facebook, please like the page. That way, every time we publish new content, you will get notified. All right, so let's go to the topic for today. Oh, before I do that, let me run the intro. Okay, so in the last couple of weeks, I've been focusing on um, mid to senior level managers who want to move up to the C suite. You want to become chief executive, chief financial officer, chief people officer, COO, chief operational officer. You want to move to the highest level in your organization or at another organization, right, of the executive. And the last live broadcast I did, I had a a very experienced senior executive who incidentally manages the human resources function at her organization come and talk us through what are the key things to do and not do if you're headed up that path. If you haven't seen that broadcast, please feel free to check it out on any of the three places I've mentioned, our YouTube channel, my LinkedIn profile, as well as um, on the Facebook page as well. You'll find it very insightful. Today, I am stepping back, right, to look at okay, so you want to move ahead. Yes, it's important to know what the competencies, the skills, and the tactics are, right, for positioning yourself to ease into into the position you desire. However, let's be a little more strategic. It's important to step back and ask yourself, okay, so I'm here. You know how it is. It's a journey, right? I'm at this point currently. There is where I want to go. What's the roadmap, right? What's my action plan? What's my roadmap for getting from where I am, right, to where I need to be? What's my path, right? And so, in thinking about, and everyone, after you've answered your why am I doing this, why is very important, is the next thing you must do is create your strategy, your roadmap, as it were, right, for your playbook for getting to where you need to get to. And so I thought to myself, let me show you, right, what's the simplest way to think about this journey, right? What signposts should we have? How do we map out this journey? And as you know, I favor a very data driven approach. So what I did was, in addition to speaking to various executives, and I'm going to have a few more executives come and talk to you directly and answer your questions, I also checked out what are the studies, right? And I came across these resources I'm about to share with you, right? Um, and I've decided to call this talk the four paths to the executive. Just a minute, to the C-suite, right? So this talk is based on on the work of a very respected professional colleague. Her name is Cassandra Frangos. Cassandra is the former head of the global executive talent practice at Cisco, and now a lecturer at MIT Sloan. She has a fantastic book, right, of the same name. It's called, just a minute, let me check. Um, it's called Crack the C Suite Code, right? And I will share the link to it on right under this broadcast in case you want to buy it. But I really like the way she framed it, and that's what I'm sharing with you today. Now, her approach to it was, she borrowed off, or she referenced some very great research done by a consulting firm called Russell Reynolds, right? And what they did was they spoke to over 100 CFOs at the Fortune 100, sorry, to 100, the 100 CFOs at the Fortune 100 companies, right? To ask them about their career paths. And so these are the patterns that emerged. So, four paths. I mean, there will be many other paths. So here's the thing about pathways and strategy. Organizations are different. So are you. Every individual's talent is different, is varied, and really, succeeding right at what you do is a mix of experiences you need to have, your understanding of your immediate and macro environment, as well as your skills in navigating your specific context. But having said that, as with all human endeavor, if you go up high far enough, you will see the patterns emerge. And those are the patterns, that form, at least we know that people have gone this way before, and here are methods and approaches that have generally been tried and tested, right? So, four ways to frame your journey. The first one, right, is what you call the tenured what Cassandra calls the tenured executive. And you've encountered it, right? Just look around you, um, at the organizations you can see immediately. You will find that most of the senior executives there, the CEOs, the CFOs, have been there for a while. Actually, is the most common way to get into the C suite, to grow through the ranks, which is why a lot of discussion around this will be around growing internally, right? Um, Generally, or I mean, more broadly speaking, right? Many executives get there by staying at that company long enough, right? They find a company they love, they fit into the culture very well, they are, you know, they add demonstrable value, and they're deliberate about their contributions at that firm. This is the most predictable and common path, right? Now, majority of the CEOs and other C-suite leaders that were spoken to, most of them, and that check it, they're promoted from within and up, right? In the survey that we were referring to, 69% of the Fortune 100 CFOs were promoted through the ranks. They grew internally. Now, of those 69%, 70% of them had at least 11 years of tenure within their organization before they got promoted into that role, right? And then, even within that, 41% of those had more than 20 years of tenure altogether prior to becoming CFO. Just goes back to buttress the point of tenure is the most predictable, right, path to the C suite. But of course, with all the provisos I gave, which is you fit, your mission is aligned to theirs, you fit into the culture, you are adding value in a demonstrable way, you are adept at navigating you know the intricacies of leadership there, and you've been able to position yourself properly. But yes, the chances are you're more likely, right, depending on the organization you're more likely to go to C-suite there, right, if you think about it properly and you apply yourself properly, than moving across. Which is not to say that people do not hire um, C-suite executives. They do, right? But people moving into C-suite level by that route are fewer. Now, looking at from that survey, now looking at the pool of executives, the three experience areas that stood out the most that they all had in common was general management. All of them, were very, very highly skilled in terms of general management, in terms of strategy and corporate development, and international experience. So, of that pool, a lot of them had general management. Some of them had strategy and corporate development and international experience. These were like the most three predictor experience sets, right, for people in that role. Now, so if you say, oh, that's good, laddie. So, that means, okay, so let me try this tenure path. Here's the thing though, that is also the path that requires the most patience, because think about it, you are not operating in a vacuum. There are people, right, already at the level that you want to aspire to, and unless they move, you're not moving anywhere. Or unless you're creating, you're creative about your movement. The thing is, your succession, your movement upwards will always be dependent on the movement of the people ahead of you. Now, having said that, something else the study showed was that most of the people who got to C suite were identified as high performers within their first year. So it's not a matter of joining the organization and parking the bus. You have to actually be, visibly valuable from the get go. So most of these people were, recognized as high potential within 1 year of joining those organizations. But the thing is, they also tend to spend, the tenured executives, people who get promoted through the ranks, tend to spend more time in a role than people who use other methods to arrive there. And it follows, as I said, because your succession is actually dependent on the movement of people ahead of you, or on how creative you can be at creating opportunities for either lateral, which is to the side in other areas, or upward movement within your organization. And people's the context is peculiar. So if you look at your organization, for instance, now, and your CEO has just, maybe he's young, he's maybe in his 30s, has just become CEO 2 years ago, you will know that you have a while to wait, right? Or your CFO, whatever role you're targeting, you're going to have to wait for a while unless something goes wrong, or sometimes something could go right and the organization decides to use the person in another capacity. But generally, if you just look at those indices, you then have to ask yourself, how long am I prepared to wait? In what capacity am I prepared to grow? Are there other targets at C-suite that I want to try and focus on, because this person is not likely to be going anywhere anytime soon, right? And so if you determine, no, I'm willing to wait 10 years, fantastic. You just know that within that 10 years, you have to spend it positioning yourself and delivering values that when the time comes, um you're right in position. For many mid to senior level people, they may think, oh, 10 years is too long. If you determine that, oh, just from what the way I'm reading this organization, it's going to take too long for me to move up, then you begin to think, what other strategies can I apply, right? On the other hand, your boss could have been there for donkey years. That's your CEO could have been there, or the person in the C-suite role you want could have been there for donkey years, and therefore, um, and maybe they've mentioned they want to retire or want to, move to other whatever. Therefore, you can see a pathway, right? And so your roadmap and your game plan has to then be much shorter, 1 year, 2 years maybe. In a few organizations who take succession planning very seriously, they actually proactively start to develop, a pipeline for each critical role, so that so what happens is the high potential people who the organization might consider for such roles already know themselves and are already in development, right, to succeed into that role. But not enough organizations are that deliberate about their succession planning, which is where you need to begin to think about yourself, about how you're branding yourself, about how you're positioning yourself, about how you're seeking opportunities for visibility within the organization. Ultimately, the long and short of tenure, right? Taking the tenured approach is, remember that you cannot determine or control someone else's movement, and is dependent on someone else's movement. You may need to look elsewhere, or you may need to, as I said, rethink what your needs are or what your approach would be, um, towards making your way up through this, through your particular organization, right? There are a couple of recommended action paths. You must be very, very, very in tune, not just with what's happening in the broader market, but in tune with where your organization is going. And then you must seek opportunities, particularly in those three areas that I mentioned: general management, strategy, and corporate development, as well as expansion, whether it's international or local. You know, those the company's growth. So companies are different. You have the startups, then you have the companies that are trying to stabilize, and get properly structured. And then when they get properly structured, you have the companies who then decide, okay, we are quite steady now, we want to grow. Understand what the strategic intent is. Hone your own skill sets, interests, actions in alignment with that. Find the points of most impactful value and position yourself to partner with the organization there, so that you are visible, right? And recognizable when opportunities come up. So yeah, that's that for taking the tenured approach. And even if you've been there for years, right, it's never too late to become more deliberate about what you're doing and what you're achieving and who you're becoming at your current organization. So let's move to the next one. The next approach, that you can take, is what Cassandra has called the free agent, right? And the free agent, this one I'm more familiar with because I have worked with people to execute this strategy, right? And these are the the people who get, they grow to an extent at one company and then jump to another company to move their climb, to continue their climb upwards. I actually know quite a few people, I've spoken about it before, who use strategic movement in and out of jobs or in and out of roles at different organizations, right? As the driver or one of the drivers for their professional growth. I know someone who was at an organization, was doing well, was recognized as a high potential, but he high potential prospect, and was being given, interesting assignments. But the way that when we talked about it, we looked at it. You're within an organization that has a fixed structure, fixed levels, fixed promotion, and some organizations kind of demotivate people with that promotion thing. So you have things around, and it makes sense. When we design these systems as HR consultants, we always say promotion cannot be reward. Promotion is movement into a specific role, right? Once someone is that in that role, there's no vacancy until that person is being moved out. Now there's a you have to identify your high potential people, put them in position. But if that person is in that role, if someone is doing great at, say, being the head of our Port Harcourt branch, as an example, right? You want that person to grow and thrive, but then get to a point where, oh, okay, there's more room for you here. Only when you move that person can someone else move into that position. So promotion should not automatically be based on tenure, right? There will be several things. Performance, yeah, and it can't be based strictly on performance either. There's performance, there's tenure, there's fit, there's alignment to strategy, there is character. Many things go into promotion. So what that means is that the person who's taking the tenured approach will be must be prepared to spend a little longer in a role than someone who's coming from outside. What that means, therefore, is I may be doing great, I may be a high performer somewhere, but based on our promotion rules, I cannot be moved for another 3 years, as an example, which means no matter what I do in that 3 years, I will be at the same level. I might move up notches, right? But I will be at the same level until the 3 years passes. In terms of really impactful functional movement, I may be treading water until the next person moves. And if it's an organization where people stay in critical positions for long, then it can slow you down, right? So we looked at his situation, and it seemed a bit crowded. It was crowded. There were many high potential people. It didn't look, and he wanted to get to a certain point within 5 years. And so he decided, what, I will leapfrog. So he was at manager, there was senior manager, AGM, DGM, GM, before you start thinking about director. Too many levels to go through. And he adopted the approach of opting to move out to a higher position in another company in the same sector. I think he did 2 years there. Do you know what? Because there it was different, he went in at a higher level there. He was able to come back to this previous organization and cut off about 2 or 3 steps, right? Just by that movement in and out. So yes, um, free agents tend to utilize that strategy. All right. So um, the thing with being a free agent, though, is that it's a very high bar. When Because most companies prefer to, and it makes sense to promote people from the inside because they know the company. You're not taking the risk of no fit. You're not taking the risk of um a wrong hire because this person is already within the system, has proven themselves. So and it's cheaper most, because the thing is, if you've been in a role here for 2 years, the market is moving. But if they're promoting you within your organization, unless you have a very progressive reward um, strategy in that organization, your growth, even monetarily, is fixed. However, new hires will be coming in at the current market rate, right? So you find that, sadly, unless the internal reward system is very well calibrated, sometimes new hires come in at a higher salary comparative to the people who are already there. Mm. Um, so you'll find that, oh, this person may not necessarily have all the years I've spent here, for instance, but is being brought in at GM because of their track record elsewhere, that kind of thing. Anyway, so as a free agent, you are going into the new organization at market rate. So the bar is very, very high. Let's look at some of the numbers that they shared in the study. All right. So they said about 22% of CEOs between 2012 and 2015 in that study were appointed from outside organizations. So you have roughly 25% of people being hired into C-suite positions, right? Now, the thing is, they'll probably require you to have been in a similar role or a very close role before. The study said about 73% of external hires had previously held a CFO role. They would ask you, um, they will look at your track record. So unless you have a really, really, really solid track record to show, it would be, the bar is high in terms of meeting their requirements. But if you've been delivering, you have a great track record, and you have a strong professional brand, then you can, those are the things that you need to do to be able to, get some leverage as a free agent. If you've just been there in your organization, yes, you've been delivering, but you're not visible to the outside, you might struggle a bit, right, to get hired into a C-level role outside. So um and the new free agents, the part of the requirement. So great track record, strong reputation. The other thing is industry experience. Typically when people are hiring into this executive level roles, they are really particular, right, about relevant industry experience, because I mean that's what's needed, you know at that level of performance. So yes, you can take the free agent approach, but those are the things you have to consider. What's your track record? What's your personal brand? um and is it within um a relevant or similar industry or same industry? Now, some of the common routes that you can take, because you may decide, okay, look, you're not gunning immediately for a CFO role, but you want to skip like 4 or 5 levels. Some roles that you can target are a divisional executive role. So it's not at the C suite, but you're responsible for either a business unit or a geographical unit of the organization. Typically, that's where people start to struggle. Oh, we have a strategy to expand, for instance, or to strengthen along business unit lines or geographical unit lines. That's when they look inside and say, oh, we don't have someone. This is particularly important, especially if you're in the African market, right? Typically, global brands where you as a local professional can add the most value is your understanding of the local context. That's where there's a lot of opportunity. So you could be targeting international brands who want to expand into your market. If you have a solid track record in your market, then you're very well positioned to move into, say, country manager role, a divisional management role, which if you then prove yourself, that then forms your path. Then you can look at West Africa. That then forms your path to perhaps moving into the core executive track, right? So divisional executive roles um, are a good way um, to break in, to move up. Another one is your core function, right? Functional leadership roles are also there, but not as much as, say, divisional. And then operational leadership, which is kind of similar to what I've said, except maybe the organization is trying to build bench strength at being able to deliver at a certain organizational cap, capacity, right? Ability to serve the market in a certain way. And your own experience, positions you to deliver it quickly. That's something they typically do not have, and they would be open to hiring for. So it is divisional leadership, operational leadership, and then strategy related roles, strategy and corporate development roles, as well as international roles. Those have some of most of a lot of the opportunities for upward movement if you're a free agent and you're looking to kind of jump a couple of levels using at another organization. All right. So that's the thing about agent, but it's also, a bit of a gamble, because I've seen where people are fantastic at one organization, superstars, right? And they decide, okay, I want to leapfrog. I want to, accelerate my growth. Let me go and take this other role at this. In fact, sometimes it can be the same role at another organization, and then they don't do so well in the new environment. So you do have to be very deliberate in your selection of your potential employer, right? Especially who's the CEO, or who are you going to be reporting to? What's their culture? You need to be very deliberate. This is not any job that comes, because yes, your you yourself bring a huge part, right, of the components of your success, but the leadership and the organization and the culture where you're going to can also impact your growth, your success, for good or for bad. So those are some things to consider if you're considering the free agent um, route. All right, so let me move faster. Then the next one is what we call the what she described as, and I agree with, the leapfrog leader. This is someone who has decided, looked at the organization and decided, look, I want to skip, get double promotion. That's what we used to call it back when we were in school, right? When you're in year three, right, and you get suddenly get promoted to year six, and you skip, sorry, year five, and you skip year four in between. So you are there, the and you've looked at it, and you're thinking, how can I love the organization I'm at, right? How can I leapfrog? How can I, go past the usual channels and accelerate my own movement? There's a certain approach to it. Now, leapfroggers tend to be very entrepreneurial. That is, adept at recognizing opportunities within, to make a difference and to add value within the organization, and capitalizing on them to create their own opportunities for growth. You have to be very strongly entrepreneurial or entrepreneurial, right? And it is this gift or this skill of recognizing opportunities for the organization, not for yourself, oh, for the organization, and then converting it into an opportunity for growth for yourself, that helps them, leap over their peers and their superiors, to jump ahead several steps based on their vision and their potential. When I was in the first chat I gave about career path, and I gave the example of a former boss of mine who demonstrated that so well. I mean, he was part of a pool of high potential managers, everybody given the same opportunities, but he recognized an opportunity in the market and capitalized on it so well that he created his own opportunity for growth, and he has taken it and grown it. The company he spun off is a unicorn now. It is way bigger than the parent company, even, right? And because of the nature of that organization, there are a couple of other, leaders, high potential leaders there, who kind of followed the same path, recognizing, and you will know if you look at your organization, you will recognize them. Who is this upstart that came just 5 or 6 years ago, and suddenly he's regional leader that, or he's the leader of this other special initiative, right? That person is entrepreneurial, recognizes that if he can find opportunities for the organization to grow, then it's tied to his own growth, and he can be the one to midwife, or she can be the one to midwife that growth. All right. So to to be a leader, a leapfrog leader, I've said it, you have to have very strong entrepreneurship, but you also have to be able to understand disruption, right, in your industry, in the business, in your business landscape, even in your organizational business model. You have to have that vision to spot how can things be disrupted, or even understand a disruption, right, and how to properly position your organization to take the best advantage of it. Is there, and the opportunities abound these days, because as we know, tech is bringing disruption to the way everything is done. Step back and look at it. um if you can find a new, more efficient, more effective way to serve your clients, or even a totally new service or value your organization can drive using technology. But it's not only technology, it's just having the sense of saying, oh, look at the market. We as an organization were uniquely positioned to exploit that. Or based on our current capability, we can do this and become that, right? So it's entrepreneurship, is being able to understand and confront disruption, And it's also being able to be a strong champion for change. This is not a path for the faint hearted, because as we know, right, change is one of the most challenging things um, um, to accomplish in human endeavor. And it doesn't exactly endear you to people. You do have to know how to, you know, lead change if you're going to succeed at leap from frogging. Now, because of the nature of the path, it can be the most difficult to achieve because you can't plan for it, right? The thing you can do is hone these three skills I have, or competencies I've highlighted: entrepreneurship, the ability to understand, to see, to engage disruption, the ability to lead change, right? And to just constantly be scanning the horizon on behalf of your organization, within your organization, to look for opportunities that you can seize and ride on, right? One of the methods, one of the positions that one of the ways to position yourself is to be very closely aligned to the visioning and strategic thinking function at your organization. So you know how they're thinking, where they're going. You can spot opportunities where you can jump in, right? To help to birth whatever vision that they are doing. So that's that. Now let me go quickly to the last one. This one is a path that very, very many people follow at very varying levels of success. It's the founder. If I mean the and it's by far the fastest way, I guess. Yeah, just set up your own and become the chief executive is by far the fastest way. Founders, of course, start their own companies and become, because they have an idea, because they have a passion. It's not because you want to be CEO. Also, I want to mention that being CEO or in the C-suite, right, of a startup or of a company that you have founded is actually vastly different to actually the job of, being CEO at an organization. Is different in nature. There's also this thing about how you need different CEOs and different, executives at different stages of a company's growth, so that you find that whilst the founder normally takes on the CEO role by default, because he's starting it. When you're first starting, you have to do a lot of the things, right? But a lot of the time when the company grows to a certain extent, if the founder, by very nature of being a visionary, right? A lot of founders are not exactly suited to administering a large organization, you know. And a lot of problems have come out of founders who are a certain way and who are not particularly strong in the competencies of what it takes to CEO an organization, especially a mid-sized to large organization. They run into problems. Okay, so having said that, yes, the fastest track to the C-suite is to create your own, right? You have more control over the timing of your entrance to the C-suite. I would like to advise though that you can't open company and you can, but designations mean something. There are many CEO of Alpha and Sons, right? Just them and two employees. They are calling themselves CEO, but you require different skill sets. As I said, you must be entrepreneurial, whichever, whether you are a founder or you're being hired in as a CEO. You do have to be entrepreneurial, right? But as I said, being a CEO is a bit different from being a founder. A founder is more visionary. A CEO, a founder is a CEO should be visionary, right? But a founder is more of an entrepreneur. You're working out your business. A CEO comes with a few more competencies in terms of looking at the organization, running operations, for instance. You find that a lot of founders become impatient, which is why in structuring we say there's the visioner, then there's the integrator, the person who pulls all the bits together, makes sure that the operations are running, while the visioner builds the vision, engages with the outside to keep growing the business. There's somebody who is making sure right? In some places called COO, but there are different skill sets, and you must understand that. And even when you start out as a CEO, you must be willing to recognize when it's time to step aside and let someone who has the correct skill sets take over. That's all I will say for today. So we've gone over four parts to the C-suite. Tenure, stay at your organization, grow, add value, strategize. That's the surest path. Then you have the free agent. You can leapfrog, you can move, strategic movement, right, between organizations to speed up your trajectory to the top. Then you have the leapfrog leader, the one who stays within the organization, but based on entrepreneurship is able to create their own opportunities, right, for growth and go with them. And last but not least, you have the founder who has a vision and goes ahead to put together the resources and bring this vision to birth and becomes a CEO, like that. So whichever way is just it just takes a deliberate thinking through, right? Today I urge you to take time and look at where you'd like to go, where you are, and start to think, what strategy, what roadmap am I going to take. I'm going to stop here and just ask you to look below this video. I will put in the links for the resources I've referred to, and also stand by. I will be announcing. I have invited a very senior executive. This gentleman um, has led the topmost technology brands, international technology brands in Nigeria, across Africa, at C-suite level. He also is also very well experienced in terms of operating at the executive in government, and he's going to we're running he's very graciously accepted to come and do an interactive session for us. Yes, so I'm going to be doing announcing that and calling for sign-ups to that interactive session soon. I think today or tomorrow. All right. So thank you for staying with me, and I'll see you next Thursday. Oh, before I go, make sure to follow me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Ladigia. And also, as I said, subscribe to the pages wherever, whichever ones you are. We need the followers, and also for you to get notified next time I'm on. Till next time, bye.